He was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind that creeps into your bones when you've been walking through life feeling like nobody sees you. Brandon had built a life out of silence. Out of doing what he had to do, clocking in, clocking out, keeping his head down in a world that never gave him the luxury of softness. He worked construction during the week and drove Lyft on weekends just to cover his mom's medication. There were no vacations, no real rest, just survival, over and over again. That day started like every other. He had just dropped off a passenger at the children's hospital and was getting ready to log off. His body ached. His mind was on autopilot. But as he passed the front entrance, something caught his eye. A boy. Alone. Not more than 8 or 9 years old. Black. In a wheelchair. Sitting under the awning with a backpack on his lap, staring straight ahead. No parent. No nurse. Just silence. Brandon's first instinct was to keep walking. It wasn't his business. The world had taught him that, don't get involved, don't ask questions, don't open doors that aren't yours. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the way the boy sat, not lost, not scared, just waiting. Like he knew something was supposed to happen. Brandon turned back and walked over slowly. "You all right, little man?" he asked. The boy looked up. His eyes were clear, steady. "I'm waiting for someone to take me home," he said. Brandon looked around. No one else in sight. "Where's your family?" The boy paused, then said, "He's coming. I just don't know who he is yet." Brandon blinked. "You sure you're not supposed to wait inside?" The boy shook his head. "No. He'll find me out here." There was something strange in the boy's voice. Not confusion. Not hope. Certainty. Like he knew something Brandon didn't. Like he was speaking about more than just a ride home. Brandon stood there, unsure what to do. Then the boy asked the question. A simple one. But it would follow Brandon for the rest of his life. "Are you happy?" the boy asked. Brandon froze. "What? Are you happy?" he repeated. "When you wake up, when you go to work, when you eat, when you're alone, are you happy?" Brandon opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The question had hit him like a punch to the chest. No one had ever asked him that. Not seriously. Not gently. Not like this. "I don't know," he finally said. The boy nodded. "Most grown-ups don't." Brandon sat down on the curb, next to the boy, silent for a long time. "You think it matters?" he asked quietly. The boy shrugged. "I think it's the only thing that does." That one sentence cracked something in Brandon's heart. He didn't know this kid. He didn't know his story. But something about him, the calmness, the honesty, felt like medicine for wounds Brandon didn't even know he had. "What's your name?" Brandon asked. "Malik," the boy said. "What's yours?" "Brandon." They shook hands. And just like that, a strange peace settled between them. Brandon stayed with him for nearly an hour. No one came. No nurse came looking. No parent appeared. It was like Malik had existed just for that moment. And when Brandon offered him a ride home, not even knowing where home was, Malik smiled and said, "I knew you'd come." They drove through quiet streets, Malik giving directions like he'd lived in every corner of the city. He didn't talk much. But when he did, his words landed like scripture. "Why do people wait to be old to tell the truth?" he asked. Brandon chuckled. "I don't know." "Do you?" "No." "Then maybe you should start now." By the time they reached the address Malik had given him, a small brick house in a quiet neighborhood, the sun was starting to set. Malik turned to Brandon and said something he'd never forget. "Thank you for not being afraid of my wheelchair." Brandon looked at him, confused. "Some people talk to the chair," Malik said. "Not the person sitting in it." Brandon didn't have a response. Just a lump in his throat. Malik opened the car door, slowly maneuvering himself out. "I'll see you again," he said. Brandon smiled. You sure about that? Malik didn't answer. He just looked back, that same calm certainty in his eyes. Then he rolled up the walkway and disappeared into the house. Brandon sat there for a long time, engine running, heart pounding. He didn't know why the moment hit him so hard. Maybe because he had gone years without feeling seen, without thinking about his own happiness. And here came this boy, young, disabled, alone, asking him the one question no adult had dared to ask. Are you happy? He didn't know how to answer then. But he knew this. He was going to start trying. Brandon couldn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the question. Are you happy? It echoed like a drumbeat in his chest. He thought about his job, his tired mother, the daily grind that had become his personality. He thought about how long he'd been surviving instead of living. And most of all, he thought about how a little boy in a wheelchair had seen straight through his armor in less than 5 minutes. The next morning, he drove past the same hospital entrance, hoping to see Malik again. He wasn't there. Not that day. Not the next either. Days turned into weeks. Malik had vanished as mysteriously as he appeared. Brandon asked around at the hospital, described him to nurses, even showed up at the address Malik had given, only to find out it was vacant. No one had lived there in months. That rattled him. Had he imagined it? Had stress broken something in his mind? No, it was too vivid, too real. The touch of Malik's hand, the calm in his voice. The question. It had happened. But maybe it wasn't about finding Malik again. Maybe the boy's job was done. Because Brandon was changing. He started looking at people differently. At himself differently. He began asking other people the same question. Quietly. In conversations. Are you happy? Some would laugh. Some would freeze. Most would say, I guess. But the question lingered. Brandon took more time off. Started walking in the mornings instead of rushing to his shift. He signed up for evening classes, something he had always put off. His dream had been buried under bills and exhaustion. But now it resurfaced. He wanted to work with kids. He wanted to be the adult Malik had been to him. Calm, open, direct, full of stillness in a world full of noise. He applied to volunteer at a local after-school program. At first, it was just a few hours a week. Helping with homework. Organizing snack time. Listening. But then something happened. The kids started opening up to him. One by one. Sharing things they didn't even tell their teachers. About loneliness. About hunger. About their parents being gone too long or yelling too much. Brandon didn't have solutions, but he had presence. And sometimes that's all kids really need. One day, a little boy named Corey, quiet and shy, looked up at Brandon and asked, Do you know what it feels like to not be seen? Brandon nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. And Corey whispered, Me too. That moment shifted something again. And Brandon made a decision. He quit his weekend driving shifts. Enrolled in a certification course to become a youth counselor. It wasn't easy. Money got tighter. Nights got longer. But he had found something Malik had taught him to look for. Purpose. He started journaling every night. Not about what went wrong, but what went right. A smile from a student. A letter from a parent. A breakthrough moment in group discussions. The question, Are you happy? Stopped haunting him. It started guiding him. 2 years passed. Brandon had finished his certification, launched a community center with the help of local donors, and created a space specifically for kids with disabilities and trauma. Physical, emotional, unseen. The first mural painted on the center's wall was a silhouette of a young black boy in a wheelchair, surrounded by light. Above it were 3 words in bold. Are you happy? The kids would ask him about the mural. Who is he? Brandon would smile and say, He's the reason this place exists. Some days, Brandon would sit by that wall and think about Malik. Was he real? Was he a spirit? A test? A messenger? But then he realized it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had changed. One question, from one boy, in one moment, had rerouted the course of an entire life. It made Brandon ask questions no one had given him permission to ask. About joy. About service. About who he really was when no one was watching. He used to think strength was about surviving. Now he knew true strength was in choosing joy. In choosing to show up with love, even when the world forgets to show it back. He never saw Malik again. But sometimes, when a student said something deep, when a child wheeled into his center without fear, when a parent cried because someone finally listened to their son, he felt it. Malik was there. Not in body but in spirit. A boy who had lived long enough to change a man. A question that turned into a mission. A seed that grew into legacy. And Brandon? He was no longer tired. He was alive. And for the first time in a long time, he was happy. Like my video and subscribe my channel for more daily videos.